listening to the only podcast in Ontario that keeps you in the game.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
All right, let's do this.
Our next guest on In the Game had a 16-year Major League Baseball career, playing 1,232 games. He played for 9 different ball clubs, including the Toronto Blue Jays from 2004 to 2008. He was also a World Series champion in 1997 with the Florida Marlins. I'm talking about Canada's adopted son in baseball. Yes, Gregg Zaun. Gregg, you are in the game. Welcome to the show. Gregg, let's start things off with talking about the business side of baseball. What is that like?
It's disgusting. I can tell you, I have zero problem talking about my experience as my own agent. I just know that, I grew up in a place where if you ran your mouth reckless, you got socked. So when you're sitting on the other end of a phone call and the general manager is calling you a POS and a greedy SOB, and then you're like, then why are you talking to me? Like, why do you even want me on your ball club? And then it's like, oh, same thing with the arbitration process in baseball. They badmouth you for 3.5 hours, and then at the end it's like, okay, pat you on the back, let's go get him.
Yeah.
Go screw yourself, buddy. Like, give me a break. Can we all just be stand-up guys and say, look, here's the comps, here's what it is. Why does it have to be so disgusting? But you definitely need that filter between you and the organization. You have to get that filter because, trust me, I had a chip on my shoulder, as big as a Frisbee by the time I finished that negotiation.
So, Gregg, you said you played with a chip on your shoulder. To me, you seem like the man's man of baseball. You seem like the team player, right? Like, if you've got my back, I've got your back. That's the type of player you were. Is that, am I right?
But you know what? I knew when to turn it off. I didn't take that chip on my shoulder out into the real world. When I was at the ballpark, cool. If you were my teammate, great. But if you weren't, whatever. I don't care. Like, one of the greatest examples of not giving a shit, me and Josh Towers when we had to go smoke A-Rod.
A-Rod.
Either one of us, definitely Towers, one-on-one, no chance, just because of A-Rod's sheer size. But me, I didn't care. I was like, let's go. It had to be done, and so we did it.
Going at it, old school baseball. Gregg, let's go back a little bit, though. Let's start from the beginning. You grew up in California. How did baseball start for you, and when did you know you had a love for the game?
Yeah, I grew up in California. That, for me, there wasn't really any choice. My favorite guy in the world at that time was my Uncle Pat. He played 11 years in the minor leagues. His older brother, Rick Dempsey, 24 years in the big leagues. Only catcher in Major League history to catch in 4 decades. That was the topic of conversation. And then Rick's son, John, my cousin, exactly the same year. We both graduated 89. He actually got drafted 7 rounds ahead of me. Played 7 years in the minor leagues. And, it was just, that was it. I loved baseball. Happened to be living in Bowie, Maryland when my uncle was with the Orioles just starting out. I think I was like 4 or 5. And then we moved to California back to where my mom was from. I love baseball, going into the clubhouse and seeing guys like Eddie Murray, Doug DeCinces, Mark Belanger, Al Bumry, just, growing up Kenny Singleton, Jim Palmer, you name it. Those Oriole heydays, that was what I grew up around. I just never really imagined myself doing anything else. I played all the other sports, golf, basketball, football, when it wasn't baseball season, but I never stopped playing baseball. It was a year-round practice or play for me, and it was in my blood early. Just grew up with a passion for practicing, playing, you name it. I never stopped. I taught myself how to switch hit.
Gregg, what is the early childhood memories that you have with baseball? Is it family? Is it, like you said, your uncle, Hall of Famer Rick Dempsey? Is that what comes to mind?
Yeah, my youngest memory of the game ever was at Memorial Stadium. We were living in Bowie, which was hour and change from downtown Baltimore. My uncle's playing for the Orioles, and my cousin John and John Martinez, Tippy's son, were playing wiffle ball in the tunnels at the stadium, and the ushers were shooing us out of the tunnels. So we would run from one tunnel to the other. We were playing wiffle ball. And I remember the sights and the sounds and the smells of the ballpark, the popcorn, the cotton candy, hearing the ushers, crying out, or the guys, the concession guys, crying out. I remember the music. I remember, all the '70s jams that were on the loudspeaker at Memorial Stadium, and I was instantly hooked. Going into the clubhouse after the game, seeing all the ball players, looking at all the candy and the pop and the gum and the sunflower seeds everywhere. I was just like, oh my God, I got to be a ball player. And yeah, it got hooked me right there. And I never thought of doing anything else. I was a better golfer until I was about 13, but it never dawned on me that I would play professional golf. It was always going to be baseball.
A better golfer than a ball player, eh? So that explains why you can get down low and go yard, eh?
Oh yeah, I mean it is what it is, man. I got struck by lightning. I fell in love with the game at a young age, and it was all I could do. I'm sure that I would have tried to play organized ball if I could have, if they had it younger than 8, but they didn't where I was from. They didn't start kids on T-ball until 8. Now they start them at like 6 months old. It's like crazy. They're out of the womb and they're already wearing a uniform.
Out of the womb and in a uniform.
It's beyond comprehension. But yeah, those are my first memories of the game.
I know we just talked about your childhood memories at the ballpark, Greg. Fast forward 20, 30 years and being a player, commercialization has really come into the game. How much have the parks changed, Greg? A lot, or are they still pretty similar from the time you grew up to being a player?
I think it's a little bit of both, to be honest with you. For me, being a former player now, I can't stand Fenway Park. I can't stand Wrigley Park.
Fenway and Wrigley, eh? Why is that, Greg?
The playing surface, it was bad. It was a bad experience for a player. I mean, you're literally like this trying to get undressed after the game because the locker rooms are so small. And then you go into the new places like the Oriole Park at Camden Yards was the first one. You can play football. You can rifle 50-yard passes from one end of the clubhouse to the other. They've got video rooms, movie rooms, video game rooms, kitchens, full staff. Guys are going to the ballpark earlier and earlier every single day. I like the upstairs to be old school, nostalgic, different, not cookie cutter dimensions, but underneath should have all the modern amenities. Heck, when they remodeled the clubhouse here in Toronto, they put in-ground hot and cold tubs. So you've got a 45-degree whirlpool right next to another whirlpool that's 105. So yeah, you have all these modern things. I played in the new Yankee Stadium. I felt like they kept enough of the nostalgic look of old Yankee Stadium, but they spruced it up. I love, obviously, Oriole Park is a gorgeous field. Some of them have gone too far, but for the most part, you look at like Pittsburgh is great. It's a gorgeous park right on the river. I look at some of the other fields like Cincinnati, a little bit bland at first when they threw it up, but now it's a lot better looking. I think they're doing a good job. And let's be honest, it's about the fan experience. You want to make sure that the fans enjoy it. And you go to Fenway now, you can pay $150 and be behind a support beam, and you're like,
Greg, let's just shift it a little back again here. You played in the 1989 World Junior Baseball Championship, and that was in Canada, was it not?
Yeah, 12 Riviera.
Yes, Three Rivers, Quebec. How was that experience? I believe you guys knocked off a gold medal, did you not?
Yeah, we won 7 straight. I think we beat Canada in the final. That was our toughest game, believe it or not. We boat raced pretty much everybody we played, even Cuba. It was awesome. I loved it. That was my first experience coming to Canada. and being 18 years old and being in Quebec, our team rules were no booze. Well, when you're 18 years old and you have that freedom, I remember a day when we went to do laundry and we stopped and picked up some Sangon, and we were sitting there drinking this beer, not knowing even what the heck it was. And one of our coaches came jogging up, all spiffy, out for a run with his laundry bag, and he just kind of came in and did his thing. And he's like, "Yeah, I'll pretend I didn't see what I just saw," because it was, the number one pitcher on the team and the starting catcher on an off day. And I remember the passion that the fans had. It was a really quaint little ballpark, quaint little town in Trois-Rivières. I enjoyed the heck out of it, and of course we won, so it was even better. In fact, I still have the American flag that I stole from the lobby of the hotel. I had all my teammates sign it on the bus ride to the airport as we all kind of went our separate ways at the end of summer. But that was really a proving ground for me, that World Championship, because I was playing against the best players in the world, and I was on the best team in the world, and I was playing every day. So it made believers out of some of the scouts that said, "This guy's too little. He can't cut it," which, I dealt with most of my career. But that was the first moment where people were like, all right, maybe he's just more than a legacy.
Too little, Greg. I hear that too often in every sport, that the guy is too little or undersized. But you know what? Like, you cannot coach heart. You cannot coach that eye of the tiger. Yes, the natural ability and the size will always trump the guy that's overlooked, that's a little undersized. But, does that game change?
Yeah, from my perspective, it took me a long time. Like, I didn't eclipse the 200-pound mark until well into my 30s. And then the last 5 years of my career, I was, I'd been working out a long time, had that old man strength finally. And it was an exponential growth. Like, as soon as I got diagnosed with sleep apnea and I was able to start getting quality rest, my body started to change. I started to maintain size, put on size, and I got stronger and stronger. There's no substitute for raw natural ability. There's no substitute for length of limb in sports. The leverage that can be put on a baseball or another human being when you're taller and just naturally stronger, it can't be duplicated. But there is an unmeasurable thing that I think baseball has lost hugely with all these things like TrackMan and I don't know, all these gizmos that they're using to measure bat speed and exit velocity and this and that. Man, I got to sit down and see a kid play. I want to know what happens when he struggles. I want to know, is this guy showing up in bad weather to play a game? If a fight breaks out, has he got his teammates' backs? Baseball is a long, long grind. You need some degree of gut and some piss and vinegar if you're going to survive. And I'll never say that a guy like me could be, a Barry Bonds. Barry Bonds was a Hall of Famer from the day he stepped onto a pro field. He was a Hall of Famer in Pittsburgh. I don't care what they say about what they allege he did. That guy had Ken Griffey Jr., Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens. These guys had that rare combination of just raw, struck by the hand of God physical ability, a desire to kick your ass, and the knowledge and the baseball IQ to go out there. They were the total package, and that's when Hall of Famers happen. You could play a long time like I did with guts and a certain degree of talent. I made up for it with baseball IQ. I studied. I always was looking for an edge, trying to figure out where the weaknesses lied in my opponents. Tried to figure out ways to make my teammates better. And ultimately that became the biggest source of frustration for me at the end. It's why I walked away in 2010. I could have played another 5 or 6 years. I truly believe that. I could have played into my mid-40s. I really – physically, I'd probably still catch 2-3 times a week right now if I wanted to get my arm in shape. But mentally, it was babysitting those superstars. It was babysitting that guy who was 6'4", 6'5", thunderbolt for an arm, accidentally making $10 million a year, and he depended on me to hold his hand and pat him on the butt and tell him how pretty he was and how good he was and carry him through a ball game. And I was like, wait a minute, don't we get this? Isn't this the opposite way? You're the naturally gifted guy. You're the superstar. Shouldn't you be like patting me on the back and putting your arm around me, telling me how pretty I am? Like, come on. It was the opposite way. And I just, after 16 years, I had said, I've had enough. That was it for me. It was a mental quit, not a physical.
Greg, go back to the Griffeys, the Bonds, the Sosas, the Jeters, the A-Rods. Are you buying the Billy Bean Moneyball analytic game? Are you taking it in? Are you buying that you can assess a player by a computer screen, or do you physically have to watch the prospect?
Yeah. Right? You got to watch them play. You got to see them play, and you also have to challenge these kids against top level talent. That's why I keep coming back. I was a union member. I was an executive subcommittee guy. I'm not angry at a kid for being a first round pick, and I know why some guys are first round picks and other guys aren't. I mean, you look at the natural ability you can project, and you hope and pray that the kid's got a good head on his shoulders and that you've done your diligence on a kid. But there's no way in my mind that an 18, 21-year-old kid, I don't care whether you're coming out of high school or college, deserves to make more money by signing his name to a piece of paper than the average major league player will make in an entire career. And I always point this argument at a guy like John McDonald. Johnny played, 10 years, if not close to. And, for a kid to get a $6 million signing bonus and a big league contract right out of college, that's a slap in the face to the game of baseball. He's getting paid to sign his name to a piece of paper based on what he's done against amateur talent, 99% of which will never see a professional field, let alone a big league field. Okay, take the first pick in the draft, give him the average big league salary, which is like $3.5 million, and then slot everybody underneath, eliminate the need for agents, all that good stuff. But give organizations a chance to be wrong. Yeah, we put $3.5 million into this kid, but he's not ready. We're not going to send him to the big leagues just to justify the pick, which is what most teams are doing nowadays. You got guys who never played the game, running organizations. They won't hire guys like me because apparently experience in the actual game of baseball is a negative thing now. Had a conversation with a friend of mine yesterday, in fact, about it. He's still working in the game, and he told me, he said, Zani, he goes, if it were up to me, I'd hire you in a second, but I can't get a job in pro ball, not even managing a ball, because they apparently don't think that I can manage a track master or whatever that road doe thing he is. I don't even know. But it's just like you got to give these kids a chance to play. Let them play against top-level talent. Look at the difference between Bo Bichette and Vladdy Jr.
Yeah, huge.
Bo Bichette was left alone in Double-A. He came out of the gates horribly, struggled most of the first half. They left him there to struggle. They left him there so that the league could figure it out and so he could figure it out. And you know what? That served him very, very well.
Yeah, Greg, and look at how Vladdy Guerrero Jr.'s situation was handled. Like, how was that done?
4 weeks here, 6 weeks there, move him up, move him up, move him up. They're looking at the kid, and he's never been challenged, never been in one place long enough for anybody to figure out how to get him out until they got to the big leagues where teams saw him 2-3 times. They had advanced scouting, video, computer analysis. The big leagues made Vladdy Jr. look pretty darn pedestrian. And every single weak point in his game that should have been addressed before he got to the big leagues was exposed once he got to the show. He was flopping all over the field at third base. His fitness level was bad. Preseason, I predicted he'd gain more pounds than he'd hit homers. And I think I bet you if they told me the truth, I'd probably be pretty darn close.
From the organizational standpoint, that's just a bad way to do it, eh?
That's wrong. From a player development standpoint, that's doing the wrong thing. You look at that kid and you think, what kind of an impact did he have on the standings? 0. What kind of an impact did he have on attendance? 0. They had 20,000 people in the stands for his debut. After all the hype, after all the social media buzz, 20,000 people? They would have been better off leaving him in AAA to develop all the weak spots in his game, give the other guys in the league a chance to figure out how to get him out to truly test him. And then the other thing that everybody seems to forget, all they want to do is point their finger at how the Blue Jays manipulated his service time or tried to and failed. They should have been manipulating his service time. He wasn't ready. Why bring a kid up like that unless he's ready to impact the playoff, pennant race, or the attendance? He did zero. So all you did was start the clock on a kid who wasn't ready to play in the big leagues.
Are we falling into that trap, Greg, of self-entitlement or entitlement with give me the money now, like the Jamarcus Russell in the NFL, first-round pick, $40 million guarantee, and is a bust? Are we basing too much on, a Bichette and a Guerrero and, the names? Before they've really even proven themselves, Greg, they're ushered up to the majors, mainly all based on hope and projections. Where are they going wrong with this? How is this going to change?
Well, they definitely did that with Bo. They let him play. And that's the way I think everybody should spend a full year at every level. You should get 500 plate appearances in A ball, 500 in Double A, 500 in Triple A. Unless you're a Ken Griffey Jr. or somebody who's ready to go sooner or later, and you can Dwight Gooden, you can identify those kids. But I'm here to tell you there aren't any good players in the minor leagues. All the good players, the really good players, are in the show, regardless of their age. Major League Baseball, I think they let social media dictate when a kid's ready to go to the show. Whereas in my day, they didn't have social media. By the time you got Baseball America to read the stats, they were 3 weeks old. You might have been hitting 300 when that edition came out, but 3 weeks later you're hitting $150. It's totally different.
It seems the Jays don't leave players down in the minors to season over time. Is that an accurate assessment?
Because there's nothing left at the upper levels to challenge them, so they just get them right to the big leagues. But they're not polished baseball players. The game's gone to, I don't care if they swing and miss, as long as 5 times out of 10, they hit a ball, or 2 times out of 10 they hit one 450 feet. It's just the polish is not there. They don't play enough baseball to know. And the kids do get a certain sense of entitlement because now they're looking. I've got kids in my program who are like, "Hey, what's my exit velocity?" I'm like, "Who cares? You swing and miss more than you make contact. Who cares if your exit velocity is 9 million? They only made contact 2 times on 10 pitches. Who cares? And you're 15. You don't think that that's going to change in 3 years? It's flipped on its ear. You got grade 10 kids making verbal commitments to universities before it's even technically legal for the university to reach out to them. So it's all garbage. That there's a huge cash grab going on out there with regards to the so-called elite programs. They're publicizing verbal commitments to junior colleges in the United States or NAIA school or D3 schools. I'm like, yeah, good, but really, that's what you're hanging your hat on? There's a whole lot of stuff going on that's wrong, in my opinion. We've lost it. We've completely lost our minds in the game of baseball. Way too heavily dependent on statistics and technology. Again, the conversation I had yesterday, I don't need a radar gun to tell me what the exit velocity on a ball is. All I got to do is listen. I can tell you whether a kid can hit, whether he's using an aluminum bat. I can tell whether he's hitting with a wood bat or not. All I have to do is listen. Listen. I can watch a kid from the upper deck and tell whether or not he's got good action through the ball. I can watch the throwing mechanics. I can watch his timing, his footwork, whether or not the kid's going to make adjustments, whether he's got good hands and reaction time. All that stuff is stuff I can see with my own eyes and hear with my own ears. I don't need a computer to tell me that. And that's the difference between real baseball guys and nerds.
Real baseball players and nerds. I love it, Greg. Are we destroying this game basically by going after kids at a young age, getting the college commitments at a young age, having the agents at 12 and 13? Is it destroying the game of baseball for these kids? I mean, they should be having fun.
Yeah, they should still be having fun. And I can tell you right now, I was a totally different player at 17 than I was at 15. I was a totally different player at 13 than I was 15. And here's the sad truth. That verbal commitment from that kid, it doesn't mean anything. It's meaningless. Because if, let's say, the school that I signed with, the University of Texas, they find a catcher that they like better 2 years from now, bye-bye. But you know what that verbal commitment did for that kid? It shooed off all the other organizations. Because, A, they can't talk to him. They can't pick up the phone and call. So they're using the coaches as the go-between. They'll call somebody like me who runs a program and say, hey, I saw this kid at this showcase or this camp. Maybe you could get him to call me. And that's technically legal. But it's technically BS to me. It's garbage. The kids should be left alone to develop. That should be the main focus. Player development. You got too many YouTube coaches out there putting a bunch of nonsense out there into the world. They've overcomplicated it as much as golf has overcomplicated the swing. There's a lot of players out there who made a nice career for themselves. Let's take Hunter Pence, for instance. Do you think in a million years I would ever try to duplicate what he's doing out there on the ball field to the masses? No, it works for him, but it ain't going to work for anybody else. So, fundamentally sound, tried and true techniques, safe, efficient, throw more properly, not throw less, all these pitch counts. The game for me is a pale comparison as to what it used to be. And I feel bad for the kids because they're not having any fun, in my opinion. They're not having any fun. They're worried about exit velocity and spin rate and all this other stuff in their teens. Go out and play. Go out and play. You hit for a high enough bat average, you hit enough home runs, you pitch well enough, pop a 90 plus mile an hour fastball in your teens, you'll get noticed. You don't need to be out there worried about verbal commitments at 15. Just go play. Go play. Train with somebody who knows what they're talking about. Get a reputable coach. Spend the money. That's one of the other things about baseball, especially here in Canada. I don't think the parents realize that there are some high-quality individuals out there that actually know what they're talking about. I could name half a dozen here in the Toronto area, ex-professional baseball players that are dying for an opportunity to teach, but they can't get paid enough. They don't get paid what their experience and their knowledge is worth. But you'll see parents put a second mortgage on a home to go throw their kid into a hockey program by some no-name schmuck who happened to lace up skates one day with a Connor McDavid and threw his name on a hockey school, and somehow that's reputable. And they'll pay for that. But you got an ex-professional baseball player here that's actually been there, done that, and they're haggling with you over pennies.
I have a lot of respect for you, Greg, on that aspect of the game. You're being honest. You're being honest and upfront about what's involved, the price that people are willing to pay. And you're right. The GTHL for AAA hockey, parents are paying $5,000 to $15,000 a year for registration, for equipment, for hotels, for travel, and then they throw another $5,000 or $10,000 for the off-season ice training and the dryland training, and it's absolutely insane.
You haven't even gotten to a mental skills coach yet. That's one of the things when I advertise my training app, which I'm baffled that I haven't sold more than I've done, but you're talking about hours and hours of instructional video by somebody who's actually done it. Look, I've tried it all. Every stand on my head and try to swing. I was always a good thrower until somebody ran into me while I was throwing, and then all of a sudden my arm came undone and one surgery led to another. But I've tried every type of fitness regimen. I've been through the slumps. I've been through complete demoralization as an athlete, having to be rebuilt by a sports psychologist mentally. I give you a prime example. If a kid were to buy my app right now, they could get me as their baseball coach, Mark Fitzgerald as their strength and fitness coach, and a mental skills coach for $1,000 a year. You're talking about $30,000 for just the physical part of it, and they'll pay it for hockey, but they don't want to pay it for baseball just yet. I mean, just my team alone, my Don Valley Dodgers ball club. We started working out November 1st. I spent a minimum of 6 hours a week with those kids, November, December, January, February, and half of March. So you're looking at 70 hours of my time. over a 3.5, 4 month period, there's $30,000 right there. If you were to buy lessons from me, there's 30 grand right there. So, I mean, it's just a matter of looking at the situation, detaching themselves from the idea that it's not hockey. Hey, newsflash, it's what your kid wants to do. It's what they're good at. Give them an opportunity. Baseball, it's not just a sport you play when hockey season's not on. It's an actual chance to be somebody good. And think about it this way. In the country of Canada, you got a way better chance of getting recognized as a baseball player than you do as a hockey player. You'd be a big fish in a small pond as a baseball player. Whereas if you're a hockey player, line up. Dozens and dozens. 12 times, 13, 15 times more kids playing hockey than there are baseball.
Make sure you tune in to part number 2 of 3 with Gregg Zaun in the game tomorrow.